Peter stood at the edge of the dock, staring at the calm water. The cool breeze blew softly against his face, but it did nothing to calm the storm of emotions inside him. Life had become too heavy, and he was tired of carrying its weight. His friends, Mark and Jake, had been worried about him for weeks, but Peter always brushed off their concerns. He smiled when he saw them, but inside he felt completely lost. Mark and Jake were not far away, sitting on a bench by the dock. They hadn't noticed Peter walking away from them, lost in thought. Without a sound, Peter stepped off the dock and disappeared beneath the surface of the water. It took a few moments before Jake looked up. He scanned the area, searching for Peter. "Where's Peter?" he asked, his voice laced with worry. Mark turned around and saw the empty spot where their friend had been standing just a moment ago. Fear gripped both of them. "Peter!" Mark yelled as he raced toward the water. They couldn't see him anywhere. Without thinking, Mark jumped into the water, followed closely by Jake. They swam around as they searched for him, their hearts pounding as the seconds ticked by. Then Jake saw a glimpse of Peter's shirt underwater. He dove down, grabbed Peter, and with all his strength, pulled him to the surface. "Help me!" Jake gasped as he struggled to hold Peter's limp body. Mark quickly swam over, and together they dragged Peter toward the dock. Once there, they lifted him out of the water and onto the wooden platform. Peter wasn't moving. His face was pale, his eyes closed. They became so afraid and confused. "He's not breathing," Mark shouted. He had seen CPR on TV before, but he had never done it in real life. But he knew they had to try. "We need to do CPR." Jake knelt beside Peter and checked for a pulse on his neck. His fingers trembled, but he could feel nothing. "We have to do this now." Mark quickly placed his hands on Peter's chest, just below his ribs. He knew that chest compressions were the most important part. "Count for me," he told Jake. Jake nodded and started counting as Mark pressed down on Peter's chest with both hands, pushing hard and fast, just like he had seen on TV. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jake counted out loud while Mark kept pressing, pushing Peter's chest up and down in a rhythm. After 30 compressions, Jake leaned down and pinched Peter's nose shut. He placed his mouth over Peter's and breathed air into his lungs. Peter's chest rose as the air went in. Jake did it again, hoping it would work. Mark immediately continued with more chest compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The numbers echoed in the stillness of the dock, but Peter remained still. "Come on, Peter," Jake whispered. "Don't give up." Mark and Jake kept switching between compressions and breathing for what felt like forever, even though only a few minutes had passed. They were both exhausted, but they refused to stop. They knew that Peter's life depended on them. Then, suddenly, Peter's chest jerked slightly. Mark froze, his hand still on Peter's chest. "Did you see that?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Do it again," Jake urged. Mark pressed down once more, and this time, Peter coughed, spitting out water. His body convulsed as he struggled to breathe. Mark quickly turned him on his side as more water poured from Peter's mouth. "He's breathing," Jake shouted in relief. Peter's breaths were shallow, but he was alive. Peter's eyes opened, and he looked up at his friends, confused and weak. What happened?" he whispered. "You're okay," Mark said. "You're going to be okay." Jake placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. "We got you, Peter. We're here." As the sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, Peter closed his eyes, still too weak to speak, but feeling the warmth of his friends by his side. Mark and Jake stayed close, never leaving him, grateful that they had acted quickly and that CPR had saved their friend's life. They had almost lost Peter to the dark water, but together, they had brought him back.